The United States is Israel's greatest ally. Iran is one of Israel's greatest foes. So the recent warm-up in diplomatic relations between the U.S. and a country suspected of trying to build an atomic bomb has Israel worried. That's the fine line Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will try to walk today when he addresses the United Nations General Assembly. Yesterday, Netanyahu met with President Obama at the White House. He urged him to keep up the pressure against Iran with tough economic sanctions. Their meeting came just 3 days after Mr. Obama spoke on the phone with Iran's new president. The call was the highest level of contact between the U.S. and Iran in more than 3 decades. Israel accuses Iran of trying to buy time while it keeps developing nuclear weapons. Mr. Obama reassured Netanyahu that Iran's new pacifist talk must be followed by action.
Both the Prime Minister and I agree since I came into office that it is imperative that Iran not possess a nuclear weapon. That is important for American security. It is important for Israeli security. It's important for world security because we do not want to trigger a nuclear arms race in the most volatile region in the world. And given the statements and actions from the Iranian regime in the past, the threats against Israel, the acts against Israel, it is absolutely clear that words are not sufficient.
So joining us now is Pamela Falk, CBS News foreign affairs analyst, to talk all about these latest developments. Thanks for joining us, Pamela.
Absolutely, Anne-Marie.
So let's talk about, this is obviously a huge concern to Israel, and Netanyahu didn't fly over here for if it wasn't. Let's talk about, though, our relationship with Israel and the kind of impact it would have on this possible resurgence of diplomatic relations with Iran.
Well, it certainly threatens Israel if these things move forward without taking precautions. And so President Obama said he was clear-eyed about it and that they would look for action. And there will be a very short time frame to see some action. The permanent 5 members of the Security Council, plus Germany, met with the Iranian foreign minister in New York. They will meet again in 1 month in Geneva, and that's where they're supposed to map out the plan. So Prime Minister Netanyahu gave the signal in Washington that he wasn't going to throw a wet blanket on the possibility of diplomatic attempts.
Right.
But nonetheless, he's very skeptical about Iran's motives. And that's because since sanctions began against Iran at the UN in 2006, that they went into place because Iran was not being transparent about their uranium enrichment, and he doesn't believe that they will be now.
And in fact, he's insisting that sanctions remain in place throughout this process. Is that the reason?
Yes, absolutely. And what his view is, at least expressed to President Obama on this round, was you've got to see the concrete action on the freezing of uranium enrichment, and there's part of the problem. This was a landmark agreement between the 6 countries plus Iran at the UN, and certainly we saw a change in tone with Hassan Rouhani, the new Iranian president. However, part of the question will be, what is Iran offering? Are they just offering to stop their uranium enrichment at a high amount so that there's not a nuclear bomb and keep the peaceful program going? Or are they offering what the UN has requested and demanded in the Chapter 7 resolution, which is to freeze it all and then build confidence, and then they could start up the peaceful part which they're allowed to do? Susan Rice, who's now the National Security Advisor, was the UN ambassador, said it's very clear they have to freeze it all first. But the Iranian president said, we have the right to develop enrich uranium.
Isn't that the debate that's been ongoing, right? Did they talk about anything else at this meeting?
Yes, the Middle East peace talks have restarted, and the Prime Minister, Netanyahu, wants to keep those going. You saw a lot of very positive reinforcement at the UN by the Israeli Israeli minister and a Palestinian minister last week. And I think you're going to start to see these peace talks move forward. They seem to be almost a brighter sign than the nuclear talks, because they're both talking about two-state solutions.
So Prime Minister Netanyahu will be addressing the United Nations General Assembly later on today. What do we expect from that speech?
We don't expect one of these time bomb cartoons like last year, but a warning that it is not time to open, to lift the sanctions, which is what Iran wants, until you have some concrete signs that they are complying with the International Atomic Energy Agency.
Action speaks louder than words. Speaking of the UN General Assembly, the Syrian foreign minister also spoke yesterday and said that the Syrian government was fighting a war against al-Qaeda linked militants. What do you think the Syrian government was trying to accomplish using phrasing like that? And we were talking about some of the phrases they used,
exactly.
right?
They said that some of the al-Qaeda terrorists eat people's hearts out. They're trying to say that all of the opposition are terrorists, that's the majority. And we know there's a democratic opposition, and the other shining light, if it really works, is a Geneva conference in November to bring the opposition together with some members of the
They're counting on a moderate opposition, right? To work
and
with.
at the same time, these weapons inspectors and those trying to secure the weapons for the Organization for the Prevention of Chemical Weapons are in Syria now, and it's a tall task.
It certainly is. Pamela Falk, CBS News Foreign Affairs analyst, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Good to be here, Anne Marie.